Good news, retailers like Target now have to admit your personal data is deciding how much you're going to pay for your groceries, all thanks to a new law in New York that is going to force retailers to disclose if an algorithm is using your personal data to set prices for the items you buy. It's called algorithmic pricing. You might also hear it called surveillance pricing, dynamic pricing, or personalized pricing. They all mean the same thing. The price you see and pay isn't the same price that everyone else sees and pays. How it works is simple. The store tracks your location, your browser history, and your spending habits to guess exactly how much you're willing to pay. In one recent example from Wired, they found a carton of eggs that cost $1.99 in one neighborhood, and then that same carton of eggs cost $2.29 in another neighborhood. Same eggs, same website, different data. It's only, 30 cents?
I mean, it's one banana, Michael. What could it cost? $10?
You've never actually set foot in a supermarket, have you?
I don't have time for this.
Let's keep going. Right now, New York is currently the only state forcing retailers to admit when they're doing this. So in the other 49 states, you're basically paying a personal data tax on everything you buy online, and they don't even have to tell you when they're doing it. Just to clarify, New York is not actually stopping retailers from using this surveillance pricing strategy. They're just requiring retailers to disclose when they're doing it. All of this sort of reminds me of when we have to go to the doctor or dentist. You get the bill, you have no idea if you're paying the same price as everybody else, or the person or computer who made up the bill just completely picked the prices at random. It's like that, but with buying everything in your life that you need or want. And before you comment, Dylan, this is nothing new. Airlines and hotels have been doing this for years. Absolutely. It's not new. It's just becoming more normalized across all the different sectors in our lives. Every place we spend money at wants us to sign up for their rewards program, or we're punished by paying higher prices. And let's be real, you know it's rough out there when you need an app to get the best deal at McDonald's. All of this is done under the disguise of making your life easier, but is it making your life easier when you need to sign up for something and then get hounded with emails and remember logins and notifications just to buy a cheeseburger? Anyways, so how are these retailers actually identifying you? How does Target or Amazon or McDonald's, Chipotle, Sonic, Whopper Grill, Subway, Crumble, Starbucks, Dunkin', Taco Bell, Burger King, Domino's, Cava, and Shake Shack know what you're doing and how much you'll pay? Through sophisticated real-time data collection that creates and builds a profile of you that has the main goal of predicting the maximum amount you're willing to pay for an item. And the shareholders rejoice. When you log into a retailer's app or website, your user ID ties together your purchase history, your wish list, and your preferences. This is first-party data that is used to segment you. For example, you're a frequent buyer who typically eats at Chipotle on Tuesday nights, and you order the same thing every week. A steak burrito. You collect rewards, and when you use your rewards, you always go for the chips and salsa. Instead of having to wait so long between using your rewards on the chips and the salsa, Chipotle might offer you a reduced price to add on your chips and salsa to your regular meal. Now you're spending more money than you normally would have spent, and the shareholders rejoice. Again, companies in all 50 states do not have to disclose how they're using algorithmic pricing. In New York only, currently, do they have to disclose that they're using algorithmic pricing. I have zero idea how Chipotle does their pricing. That example I just gave was purely a work of fiction. Chipotle, if you're watching this, I love you. But this is not just about yours or mine weekly burrito. It's about your bigger purchases too. Let's look at another example. Say you were looking at buying a TV from Best Buy. And again, I have zero idea if Best Buy uses algorithmic pricing. It's an example of what could be done. But let's say the algorithm was able to see that you were in a zip code that is tied to a higher than average income. The prices you see for TVs are going to be higher than the base price. Your data tells companies an entire story about yourself. Through your data, they know what you bought, when you bought it, how much of it, and what you're likely to purchase next, all without you even logging in. Your device has a unique fingerprint, the type of browser you're on, your screen resolution, your IP address. All of this creates a snapshot of you. Third-party cookies and pixels are tracking your behavior across the entire internet. Everything you search for, how long you spent on a product page, what you added to your cart but didn't even buy. I just got an email like this, I'm sure you've gotten one too, where it says, hey, you forgot to check out, but you didn't even give the company your email address. You just added it to your cart. Your mouse movements and scrolling patterns are literally signaling to retailers how interested you are in something. The more interested you seem, the more they think you'll pay. This new law in New York at least has some recognition that this practice is taking place. Retailers are supposed to show a clear and conspicuous notice right next to the price. The exact wording they're supposed to be using is, this price was set by an algorithm using your personal data. This applies to online sites, apps, and in-store digital displays. Again, the retailer doesn't have to reveal what data they're using or how their algorithm works. They just have to flag when it's being used. According to Wired, the Target disclosure I mentioned earlier isn't exactly easy to find either. A customer would have to know to click the little eye icon next to the price and then scroll to the bottom of the pop-up. Even when they're required to tell you, they're basically making it as hard as possible to actually see. do you think this type of disclosure is actually a step towards transparency and away from price discrimination? New York law is enforced by the New York Attorney General. If a retailer fails to comply, the punishment starts with a cease and desist letter to give the retailer time to fix it. If they fail to fix it, in comes court injunctions, then civil fines up to $1,000 per violation. There's no cap on violations and no proof of consumer harm required for violations, which could potentially add up fast for big chains doing this at scale. But if the company is big enough to be using algorithmic pricing, which, let's face it, is not mom and pop shops, they're likely set with a legal team that will go to battle. So where is this surveillance pricing headed? A few months ago, I made a video about RealPage, a rental housing software company. 26 of the biggest landlords in the US were caught using AI to coordinate rent prices nationwide, and they settled for $141 million. Greystar, who is America's largest landlord, they manage 946,000 apartments, was told to pay $50 million. That fine comes out to around $52 per unit. The settlement gets split among millions of tenants. After lawyers take their cut, you might get lucky and get $20, maybe. Greystar's annual revenue, by the way, is $3.8 billion. Anyways, these landlords shared your private rental data with RealPage, things like your payment history, when you renewed, and how much you paid. Then RealPage gave all 26 landlords the same pricing recommendations, which is basically price fixing. They just use an algorithm so they could pretend it wasn't coordination. There's a similar playbook being applied here with surveillance pricing, but instead of your rent, it's your bread and butter. Similar logic, different scale. So what can we actually do about this invasive technology? First, let's assume that it's already happening. You don't need to wait for a company to be forced to share how they're turning your data into dollars to know how to fight back. These companies, even in New York, are under no obligation to share the details of their software with you. Second, be mindful of how you're transmitting data. It's hard to do this because companies have made it extremely hard to do this. But whenever possible, you want companies to not know who you are when you're just browsing. You can use a browser like Brave to limit the amount of tracking. You can use encrypted services when possible for things like email, file storage, and even AI. Proton Unlimited is great for this, and they also happen to be a sponsor of this video, which I'll place a link in the video description where you can get 50% off for Proton Unlimited. I use it and highly recommend it. Also, besides doing your best to stay anonymous to avoid personalization, you can try comparing prices across devices. For example, you could look at the same item on your phone, your laptop, and different browsers and see if you get a different price. There's some research showing that iPhone users sometimes pay more than Android users for the exact same product. Also, you can use a VPN to hide your location. For example, rural prices might get you lower prices than cities. You can install browser extensions like uBlock Origin or Privacy Badger. These block third-party pixels and cookies, trackers that are following you around the internet and report your behavior back to advertisers and retailers, but also PSA. Please be mindful when it comes to extensions. This is important. There are a number of extensions that are for free VPNs, which are actually malware and can get you hacked. So please do your research on whatever you download, especially browser extensions. Like the whole theme of this video, anytime something seems free, you are likely paying with your data, which can ultimately cost you more in the long run. Also, on your phone, you want to deny location access to shopping apps, turn off ad tracking in your iPhone settings. Every data point you deny them is one less input for their pricing model. And if you're in New York, there's actually something you can do about this at scale. If you look up something and you see that the price is different on your phone versus your laptop for the same exact product, and they're not disclosing that the price was set by an algorithm using your personal data, it's important that you flag that suspicious pricing to ftc.gov/complaint or your state attorney general. Your reports are going to help enforce the law, and the more violations they document, the harder it becomes for retailers to hide behind a tiny icon. Yes, New York is the first state requiring disclosure, but the pushback and noise from consumers is the only way we're going to see change around this pricing practice. If you remember nothing else from this video, just remember this: your data isn't just being collected anymore, your data is being used to separate you from your money, and you can do something about it.